The year was 536 AD. The world moved in routine. Farmers bent over their fields, guiding oxen through the soil. Merchants haggled in crowded markets. Children laughed as they chased one another through narrow streets. Life was ordinary, familiar, safe. But far away in China, one man reported hearing something strange. He described it as a blast, a sound from the sky, louder than thunder, sharper than any storm. What he heard would remain a mystery for centuries. But soon after that, a shroud of dark clouds began to spread across the earth, veiling the skies and blocking much of the sunlight. Procopius of Caesarea, a historian of the Byzantine Empire, wrote of that moment, "The sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon, during this whole year." When the skies were fully swallowed by darkness, the true destruction of 536 AD began. First came China, where chronicles recorded a yellow dust falling from the sky, while the sun itself seemed to vanish. Summer turned to winter, farming became impossible, and the first whispers of disaster spread. In Ireland, the annals recorded a failure of bread in the year 536. Grain withered before it ripened, frost struck during the summer months, and hunger followed. Elsewhere, multiple voices, Procopius in the Byzantine Empire, John of Ephesus in the Middle East, and the Irish annals in Europe, all spoke of the same calamity, crops that would not ripen, and famine spreading like a shadow across continents. It was the earliest near-global crop failure ever recorded in written history. The earth was growing colder. Panic spread as famine swept across Europe and Asia. In Constantinople, trade reports confirmed food shortages everywhere. Ships arriving at the city's harbors brought grim news of ruined harvests from distant provinces. People whispered that God himself had turned away from them. Constantinople had never seen darkness like this. The empire's greatest city was starving, and the crisis grew so severe that even Emperor Justinian faced unrest as food shortages worsened. Hoarding by the rich only fueled the anger of the poor. But if Constantinople suffered, the devastation in the far north was even more brutal. In Scandinavia, history itself seemed to vanish. No written survival records remained, hinting that something catastrophic struck them. For centuries, what happened was a mystery, until archaeologists uncovered chilling clues. Entire farms had been abandoned. Villages lay empty, tools scattered, as if people had simply walked away. Year after year, crops failed. In shallow graves, the bones of the starving told the story of a people caught in endless winter. It must have felt like the end of the world for them, for their myths spoke of Fimbulwinter, 3 endless winters with no summer in between, a sign that Ragnarok, the doom of the gods, was near. Many historians now believe those myths were born from this very catastrophe. The people of the north had only 2 choices: starve or move. Countless families abandoned their ancestral lands and went south in search of food. But these migrations did not come quietly. They rippled across Europe, igniting conflicts and reshaping kingdoms. But in Syria and Mesopotamia, same story repeated. Bishop John of Ephesus wrote, "The sun was dark, and its darkness lasted for 18 months. Each day it gave light for only a few hours, and even then it was no brighter than the moon at night." The people of the Middle East believed they were witnessing the end of days. Families boiled grass and chewed on leather to survive. The hunger was followed by fear. Priests declared that God's judgment had fallen upon mankind. This sense of doom would only deepen when, just a few years later, a new terror, the plague of Justinian, swept through the region, killing millions. But the New World, which remained isolated from majority of humankind history, also couldn't escape this destruction. Great city of Teotihuacan, home to more than 100,000 souls, the disaster struck just as fiercely. For generations, its pyramids had towered over the Valley of Mexico. But after 536, the rains failed. Fields of maize shriveled and hunger set in, and their fate was same as Scandinavian. No records from that period survived. Archaeologists discovered entire neighborhoods burned to the ground, temples defaced, and royal palaces abandoned. It was as if the starving people had turned against their own rulers in desperation. Further south, in the Maya lands, villages emptied. Tree rings and soil records tell of a brutal drought. Without food, kings lost the divine power they claimed to hold, and their cities began to fall silent. Back in Constantinople, people had enough. Bread prices climbed higher than ever before. The poor starved, while the wealthy locked away their hoarded grain. Riots broke out across the city, and Emperor Justinian, already despised for his crushing taxes, struggled to keep order. Soldiers abandoned distant frontiers to search for food. Trade routes faltered. But Constantinople was about to face an even deadlier terror. In 541, barely 5 years after the blast, the plague of Justinian swept through the empire like wildfire. Soon, the crowded streets of Constantinople became a nightmare. Witnesses spoke of corpses stacked in the open, of entire families vanishing in days. At its peak, as many as 10,000 people died in a single day. Constantinople, once the center of the world, was drowning in death. For Justinian's people, all this were not accidents of nature, but proof that the end of days had truly come. But this wasn't the end, otherwise you wouldn't have been alive. So what happened? The mystery of 536 wasn't solved until scientists examined Greenland and Antarctic ice cores. They discovered microscopic shards of volcanic glass, proving that a massive eruption had blasted ash and sulfur into the stratosphere. Most evidence points to an eruption in Iceland, though some scientists believe multiple volcanoes were involved. This wasn't just smoke in the air. It created a sulfuric acid veil that circled the globe, reflecting sunlight back into space. The Earth's temperature plunged by 2 to 3 degrees Celsius, triggering the coldest decade in 2,000 years. Tree rings from Europe, Asia, and the Americas all show stunted growth, evidence of worldwide crop failure. The eruption didn't just cause famine, it destabilized entire empires, weakening them right before the Justinian plague struck. History is full of stories that shaped our world, some forgotten, some unforgettable. If you enjoyed this journey, make sure to subscribe so we can uncover the next one together.